Welcome to 1111, which is a segment from my podcast where I talk about a topic for 11 minutes and 11 seconds. Today's topic is actually I kind of want to make this like a little, consistent topic where I try to answer like a question, and it can be like a very simple question. For like, today's question is how to heal. Like, how do I heal? I feel like, well, one, that's not simple at all. Two, I feel like that's something that it's just always like, how do I heal? Like, what's the process? Like, how do I start this? How do I begin my healing process? How do I even begin to, like, open my mind to the thought of healing? And one, we're never going to be fully healed. That's just something we have to, come to terms with. We're always going to be constantly healing, until, our last days. I think I feel like it'll get easier as we live and as we grow and as we meet people and as we, grow stronger in ourselves and all of that and all of those things. But I don't think we'll ever be 100% healed from a situation. I read a essay a couple months back talking about how when you break a bone, let's say you break your wrist or your collarbone, whatever it is, whatever bone. I've never broken a bone before. I don't know how that feels, and I do not want to think about it. Today in the morning, I woke up and like my shoulder was hurting me super bad, and I was like, oh my god, like what is going on? I was just super sore. But anyways, so when you break a bone, it gets healed, but you're still moving with caution. You, like, along the years, that bone might, hurt a little bit. That bone, you're still going to, whatever exercise, whatever movement you do, you're going to be worried about that bone specifically, or you're going to, still remember the pain that caused. And I feel like that's what healing is, and that is what, these situations can make us feel. And obviously every situation is different for what we're healing from. My personal healing is religious trauma, um um parents not accepting, or family not accepting. You know I feel like that is my trauma. That is my something I need to heal from. Probably also, like, growing up in a white community and not healing from healing from being bullied, being the fat brown kid. That's also some form of healing that I've been working on. And I feel like for me, I've one of the biggest things that I've learned to do has been accepting. I've learned to accept everything that's happened. I've learned to accept the response that everyone has had with me, and I've learned how to accept that they might never apologize. Um, I've learned to accept that, what they did to me was, in that moment, their own insecurities or their own brains or their own person, and that it had nothing to do with me. I've also learned to not expecting an apology, not expecting uh, whatever it is, not expecting anything. For me, it's kind of like expecting an apology and demanding an apology and being like, I deserve this. Granted, you do deserve this. You deserve that and more, but I wouldn't want it to be disingenuine. I wouldn't want it to not mean anything to that person. So it's like accept and don't expect. And I feel like I've also done a lot of inner work. I've worked on my brain. I've worked on rewiring my brain. I've worked on, like learning, like reading, listening to podcasts, meditating. I've went to a couple therapy sessions. Like sometimes those just don't work out. I feel like okay, so like sometimes we equal healing with therapy, which, yes, that is true. That is 100% true. If you want to heal, getting actual therapy help is important. For me, I had a couple sessions, and I personally don't feel ready to go to therapy. I feel like I need to be a little bit older and experience a little bit more, to, I don't know. I just want to be a lot more expressive, and I want to see where my brain and my body and my own self takes me. I've I feel like I'm a very, level-headed, like I'm a good person. And I feel like I'm able to handle some situations on my own, and I don't need, therapy at the moment. And I think that's okay to say. Like, I feel like therapy just sometimes doesn't work for people, and that's totally fine. I feel like uh, I don't think it's like in order to heal, you have to go to therapy. I think there's other work to do other than therapy, like having conversations. Um, you can do your inner healing by like meditations or cleansing. I feel like healing isn't necessarily just therapy and meditation and reading and this and that. I feel like it's also in like conversations. It's in self care, self love, self respect. It's also in kind of like those situations past. It's like, okay, those situations happened to you. Well, now that you're older, now you're wiser, now you learned. You're going to defend what those people bullied you about. Like for me, for example, I've noticed that I've healed a lot um when I created boundaries, when I set these boundaries with my family members who were conservative, and with my family members who are very, like just not the cutest. And I've learned to be like, okay, this is not okay with me, and I'm going to let you know, or I'm going to move on. I feel like that's healing for me. I feel like being able to look back at a situation and understanding what happened, and being like, okay, I forgive them. I am going to move on, because healing is the present and the future. Healing is something we're doing here right now. And being stuck on a certain, situation that happened to us is in the past. And we can never, ever take that time back. But what we can do is control the now, and well, not necessarily control, but what we can do is focus on the now and in the future, because that's really all that we have. And honestly, all we have is right now, right here, right now, right here, today, right now. This literal day is all we have. But let's not get too like crazy. We'll probably have a lot more days and years, but I feel like sometimes there's so much pressure. I think for me, like I never actually learned about the term of healing until like a couple years ago. I didn't know that was the term for it, and I was just, like, how do I get better? How do I feel better about this situation? And I feel like learning certain like wordage and learning certain words about all of these things that have terms is actually so beneficial to me, just because it allows me to use these in my vocabulary, and it allows me to use these in like my brain, and introducing just something so different that I've really never heard of. And now I'm like allowing my siblings as well, or like my nephews and cousins, whatever it is, I'm like introducing them to the process of healing, of being like, okay, look, listen, this situation really messed us up. I think we need to heal from this. We need to talk this out. We need to have a conversation. We need to figure out what was the issue, what, brought us to this point, and find a solution. Or even the solution can be space. The solution can be taking a break. The solution can be, not expecting an apology, but if receiving an apology makes you feel better, then boom, like for example, my sister had done something to me that was, it kind of messed me up a little bit. So I asked, this is the only time that I ever asked for an apology. I was like, time had passed, and it was my first therapy session actually. And I asked my therapist about this, and she's like, well, it's okay to ask for what you want. So I had a conversation with my sister about the issue. We talked it out, and I was like, I feel like the only solution, and for us to put this past us, will be an apology from you. And that is exactly what happened. And now, our bond is stronger than ever. And I think it's okay to ask for what you want, but don't expect these things. Don't, just accept for what it is, and try to have these conversations, or have the inner conversations as well, like journaling. Journal all your feelings. I feel like that really helps me heal. Just knowing what's in my brain and knowing that I'm willing to move on and I'm willing to move past this is honestly like it doesn't have to be like I'm going to just forget about this and move past this. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to take your time, let this marinate, let this sit in with your brain, because all of these things, we're all such different human beings, and all of these like experiences that traumatize us can hit us so different. Like some people will, it will happen to them and they'll go on survival mode, and then it'll hit their, it'll trigger them out of nowhere, and then they start their healing process. That's kind of what happened to me. Other people will, something will happen to them and it'll take them, they'll take their time and to heal and then, survive. It's really just a process, and this will never end, and this will always, I think it'll get better and easier with time and practice. And we're so young, so you just have to remember, like, I'm so young, and I'm really proud of myself, how much we've grown and how much I've been able to evolve and heal and such. But yeah, that was today's topic. I love you so much. Please be safe. Goodbye.